Testing 1 2 3, 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3.
right, thank you. I want to call to order this August 21st meeting of the Monroe County Redevelopment Commission. Would you please read the roll, please?
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Present.
Commissioner Kiesling,
Yes.
and I don't see Commissioner Tucker online or Commissioner McCarty. If either of those attend, we'll note in the minutes when they arrive.
They're a little later getting stuff out, so maybe they forgot.
And Lisa's online?
Yes,
Okay.
Hi, Lisa.
and representative from the auditor's office is online, Carly Woodruff.
All right.
Hello.
Okay. Our agenda includes an update on Vernal Pike, minutes, claims, staff comments, commissioners' comment, and adjournment. We want to save the gap thing till staff comment.
The update on Vernal Pike Connector budget is kind of what I kind of just put that on here as this because I knew we were going to have an issue. And
Okay.
so that's what that's intended to be.
Okay, all right. Do you want to lead that discussion then?
I will lead the discussion. I believe what I just heard from Mr. Cassidy is you shouldn't do anything to any of your family members but I think I'm about to do it to you, so I'm going to apologize in advance. Appreciate that. We were alerted, I think, last week that our grant fund, 8165, which is our Vernal Pike Connector Grant Fund, as you remember, we got a lot of federal funding associated with that project, has a negative balance of $2,463,000 and $2,463,600. And so that was always intended to be paid for out of the West Side TIF. And so the immediate reaction, well, let's look at the TIF district and get that fund caught up. And when we looked at that, and we only have $1,863,733.48 in that fund. And there's a chart on here that shows kind of the expected revenues or expected expenditures between now and next. I used next till the spring settlement of 2025 because it was clear that we were going to have an issue. I would note that we haven't made the fall stem payment for RBB CSC, so I wanted to make sure that when we looked at this with a sense of we're still going to make all those payments that we to the school system and to the fire department that we have agreed to.
Okay.
So if I took that, those numbers are roughly $642,000. And so as I go through here and we go through it, I rounded that up to $750,000 just to make sure we had some kind of cushion involved, trying to find out what the West Side TIF could support in payments, both now and then at the end of the year. I kind of combined those two together. And so doing the math, that would leave us, assuming that we got at least $900,000 in our fall settlement, and I'll get into that, why we have that assumption in here a little bit later. That would allow us to pay out of this TIF fund a little over $2 million, $2,013,750.48. That minus what is currently in that as a negative in that fund would leave a difference of about $448,967.
That would be a balance.
That if we paid the $2,013,000, that fund would still have a negative balance of $448,967.
So this is going to be a negative after spring 2025?
Now that would be a negative at the end of this year.
Okay.
if we paid if we retained $750,000 to pay for basically the highlighted expenses up here with a little bit of cushion in case something unexpected happens.
Okay, so but haven't we already paid the annual report?
But we will in next year. So if
Okay,
we,
no, wait a minute. All right. Let me go back. Let me start over here. I don't know who wrote this. All right, so we have right now 1,863, 733.48.
correct.
We are expecting an income of roughly, what did you say,
I put $900,000 in this calculation.
placeholder until, say, this is for...
Who's Stephanie Carter, if I can ask?
Stephanie Carter's in our auditor's office, who handles a lot of the tax allocations. And so one of the issues we're looking at is, and one of the causes is that our spring settlement was lower than we expected.
Yeah, and when do we get that 900,000? When's that fall settlement occur?
That would be in usually early December.
Early, okay, fall, so it's early December. Now, between now and then, we only have the 1.8 million to work with. And what expenses do we have between now and then that we have to pay?
On this, it would be the fall 2024 STEM payment to RBB CSC.
Okay, so our only obligation
Paid the annual report.
is
Yeah, 9,000 is paid.
RBB, and that's 270,000.
Well, it's roughly 15% of 950,000, because that's what.
Oh, yes,
Which,
of 950 was the spring amount?
roughly.
Okay. Yeah, we're not getting as much revenue there as we had expected. Okay, so we got that coming in, which gives us a total of 2,013,000. And you're showing obligations through the end of the year of 2,463,000. Now, where is that number coming from?
And I'm going to take a step back, because I think, and Lisa can correct me wherever I'm wrong, is that when we look at what is going to be paid this year, it's $142,500 for the fall STEM payment, which that's an approximate. I don't have the exact number of the fall settlement, but it was under $1 million. And then we typically will make our January interest payments at the end of the year. So those would be the two others that if we looked at our cash balance, we would have to cover. And what I did in this is I didn't look at it as an end of this year issue. I looked at it as what will we have through the spring settlement of 2025, which we will typically get in June, because I wanted to make sure that we had enough to make the second payment for RBBCSC and the first payment for the fire truck payment, our bond payments, because those are, in my mind, what this fall settlement is meant to make sure we have funding to cover.
We've already committed it.
Yes.
We've committed the funds, but we don't have it in.
And we won't get another influx of revenue until that spring settlement in 2025. So I wanted to make sure we could cover all the expenses through that with the money we have on hand and what we expect to get at the end of the year.
I'm still not coming up with 2,463,000. 463, where does
The
that?
2,463 is the amount that was paid from Fund 8165 to NDOT that the cash was not in that fund to cover.
How
So
did-
that's, if you're thinking of, we wrote that check, and now we're trying to
Now we're trying to cover the check.
cover the check.
Okay. Has the amount of money that was requested, it's been paid through the county system?
Correct.
So,
They got
This-
that, the NDOT got their payment in March.
okay, so the state has received the money. Now we're into a situation of trying to balance our account. When we found out that we essentially wrote checks into the red.
Correct.
Note for the minutes that Cullen has arrived. Do you have a copy of this for him?
He should have some in his.
Okay,
packet.
good.
So at this point, Jeff, the county as a whole has paid the bill
Correct.
through whatever series of funds we had available at the time.
Yes.
But now the TIF fund is beholden to the general account to balance the accounts? Is that the basis I'm looking at here? And get them correct from
I
us?
think that's a simplified version of it.
Okay. So at this point, what we have to do as the RDC is to verify our sources of funds that we go into the TIF of what we've committed to,
Mhm.
identify where we made the mistake.
Yeah.
and
Doesn't
then
make any
figure-
difference.
Huh?
Doesn't make any difference where we made the mistake.
Well, it's like anything, you want to identify, is it a situation where we just didn't know we had a additional cost that came in, which is indicated, that seems that half of it. Yeah. And then what we do to take care of it. I mean, I'm just trying to look, we pay our bills, but we have to verify where these funds are to keep them intact and, balanced essentially. Is that what we're attempting to do at this
I
point?
think what we're trying to, one, I think whenever a mistake like this occurs, we should find the root causes of it so we know what to look for the next time, right? And then we need to figure out a way to correct the mistake. And this was a fairly large
Fairly significant
dollar
mistake.
size mistake that we just need to figure out. And I've got in part 3, I go through and say, hey, here's where we think we made the mistakes, right? So we're not.
Yeah, we're not, there's nothing that anyone's not disclosing. It's simply a matter of how where it came from, what the root cause of it was, and then how we cure this situation.
Right.
With our limited cash flow that we have coming in from these particular funds. And I mean, it all comes back to the TIF funds that we have and who's paying it and when it allocates and pays. But when do these funds as a county whole have to be
Okay.
reconciled?
Wait.
So,
January.
Randy,
Let's go through these things one at a time, because I'm still not satisfied these numbers are even close.
Right.
Um,
They're confusing me.
Yes, this is not written up, so you can quite understand it. I guess one of my questions is, looking at your part 3, so we had an invoice from Kreider. That was the late invoice.
Mhm.
Still think we should have stuck him with that. That nobody had included because we didn't know what it was. So that's part of it. The second was the cash flow analysis reflected an additional $515,000 from the Profile Parkway Bond Fund, which is its debt service reserve. Now, how much is that's a 2020 bond. Is that the correct debt service reserve amount? We've been paying on that bond for several years. Is that the correct reserve amount?
And we've confirmed with both the bank and Financial Solutions Group that that is the correct number.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about the problem with the spring settlement. Why is it lower than expected?
And we don't have an answer to that question right now. What I can tell you, what we are, the person, Stephanie Carter in the auditor's office, she's on vacation. She's going to be in, I think, later this week. We're going to go through, we want, and look at, were there any appeals? Were there any people who didn't make payment? And then we're also going to look at we have one parcel in the West Side TIF where we distribute that between the city and the county. We're going to review that to make sure it was calculated correctly and allocated appropriately. So those
We've had problems with that before.
we have.
Okay. All right, so those are the kind of the three things. The only one that's in question is the revenue issue. And that could be a revenue issue again in the fall settlement, correct? So we need to know what its impact might be on the fall settlement because our $950,000 estimate there might be high.
We need to find out what the cause is.
Find out what's going on there, okay. All right, are any of these obligations that we can defer? I think the banks are going to want their interest. The annual report is required. The STEM is not going to be 270, it's going to be 15% of the 950, so it's only going to be 142, right? So we're going to gain $100,000, $130,000 there.
I think we haven't made the fall payment yet. And so the fall and the spring, assuming the revenues are correct, and then we would have 270 between now and July 1 of next year. So I would not reduce that at this point.
Would be 15% of whatever that particular amount that comes in is. But if we
But
can,
I'm not necessarily interested in robbing Peter to pay Paul.
no,
And then the fire truck, boy, I wish I'd known this then. Feeling like I kind of got duped here a little bit. All right.
So, Richard?
Aside from the layout here, I want to.
Has a comment.
Yeah, Lisa?
Yeah, so I want to explain a little bit on the confusion for the payment on the construction. The department, we are new to grant funds in the last 3 years. And the way I had ran my other grant funds is I could do my cash to cash transfers as I was getting my distributions in. So I would periodically get those down to zero. Then a couple weeks ago, that's when we found out we were not allowed to do that. So I thought I could still run this grant fund just like my other grant funds and then do the cash to cash transfers moving forward while the project is under construction. Again, that's the way I did my other grant funds, but that was the incorrect way to do them. That's what we just learned 2 weeks ago. So I don't want you to feel like you were duped at all because it was just it was a misinterpretation on how these grant funds could have been ran. So that's why we were trying to find a solution now versus what we thought we could pay as we went through construction of the project. And we wouldn't have had to shell it out all at one time.
So
I hope that makes sense.
The extra cash left over at the end then?
So what you do is you can have a negative balance in your grant funds in the cash because those are supposed to be reimbursements for federal aid projects. The construction has always been a confusing part of the grant funds on our part and the auditor's part of that is not a reimbursable part. That should just be paid even out of our 4920, our TIF, not even associated into the grant. That's why you can run a negative balance. That's why we ran negative balances in the grant funds. However, you're not supposed to do it just to support your local match. That's what we just learned in the last 2 weeks. I assumed we had more time going into this project won't close for 2 years. So
Yeah.
it was a new lesson on my part for paying back our match
Well,
from the cash.
you were just moving money
Right,
accounts.
correct.
This is, we don't have the money to move. That's a different issue. Okay, now why it doesn't make any difference why, as far as I can tell. We just need to figure out how we're going to solve this particular problem at this point. So one option we have is to find out whether we aren't getting any taxes paid that were due, right? And if that's not true, then the other one is don't pay some bills that we're supposed to pay. I mean, those are the only two options I see here.
Or is there any other county revenues? I'm going to use the term ARPA. I have no idea if it could be allocated or not, based on rules, that could be to make up this shortfall based upon a group-wide issue that occurred.
I think the issue that we've explored with the financial advisor, and I contacted our bond counsel, that we could utilize is have a different fund who has funding that would be appropriate to pay these expenses, and do a reimbursement resolution so that next year, maybe second half of next year, whenever the revenues are there, we would pay that fund back. And so the one that I talked about in depth with bond counsel, because the North Park TIF bonds are out there, and we have $1.5 million sitting in that, is whether that would be something that we could look at utilizing for under that TIF, where this project is, that TIF is within just over 1/10 of a mile from where this road is. That TIF has Curry Pike in it, and it would be easy to see how that would benefit that other TIF. So I think those TIF funds could be used for it. Again,
Those TIF funds are to pay for a road project which is ready to go.
yes.
And if we don't have the TIF money available to pay for that in the end, then it's Steve Kreider that takes it in the ear, not the county or anybody else. That to me is unacceptable. I mean, that's an obligation we have that we've set, and we need to be able to pay that bill when that bill is due.
And that project is part of a bond, and and that's why I talked to bond counsel and the financial. So when that project gets constructed, which we expect to be next year, then we will have debt service payments based upon that. And so we would want to work with those two groups to make sure we have coverage with, I wouldn't want to do any kind of transfer that would jeopardize our ability to make at least 2 years worth of payments out of that fund for that bond, right? I mean, that's a potential option that we need to explore, but again, there are other funds that we could also utilize that for. ARPA probably isn't a good one for a reimbursement resolution. That wouldn't be reimbursed, right? But there are other county funds that we could look at if that fund did not seem appropriate once we did that research.
The reason I asked that on the ARPA funds, it may not be for the reimbursement, but given the dollar amount we have, could some of that be allocated to whatever the construction cost is or inspection cost that would therefore reduce the fact that we have a TIF fund that is tapped out, and we've written ourselves into the red without knowledge of doing it.
I would say that the ARPA funding itself, there is no federal restriction for using that for match funds for this project that I'm aware of. I'm also aware of that all that has been allocated to other areas, and so.
All allocated now.
Well, it's allocated, but it's not under contract, so there could be a potential possibility utilization of it if they wanted to reallocate again, because it's already happened once or twice. So I'm just asking that because my main concern at this particular point is whose fund in the county is coming up short $500,000? Is it the highway department, or since we've already paid for it, one of the budgetary departments in the county has got a deficit. Now, the deficit it has to come from a payment standpoint from our TIF funds, which is under the discretion of the RDC. Right now, whose department is short $500,000? Is it highway?
So the way I understand it, it comes, when you pay these large checks and such, it's basically just through the whole system. It's not like it's just coming out of a certain pot, is my understanding.
Okay,
Um,
sorry, I apologize. Go ahead.
no, that's fine. Um, we've looked at different options here, and if the TIF is, if the State Road 46 TIF isn't the answer, I know all the ARPA funds have been allocated. I am more than willing to try and find it between a couple budgets that I have, to help with the shortfall, because I want to make this problem go away. So, there's that possibility out there. Again, there's a lot of factors that cause this. I just, I'm with you guys. I want to get it fixed, but I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable with the decision of risking the North Park project or anything like that.
Appreciate that, Lisa. I guess what I'm gathering here is the money has been paid and it came out of Monroe County's general fund at this present moment. So the state is not looking at us from a standpoint of you bounced a check.
No, absolutely not.
That's the first thing. And then, of course, the next thing is, how do we correct it? Because obviously, from a general fund standpoint, there's been $400+ thousand that's been written out that people weren't necessarily aware of where those funds would be recovered from at the time, based upon the knowledge they had, the allocations, and what the projected revenue was based on how previous grants had been dealt with. This one, because of the federal component, has a little bit difference of a nuance from what we've typically, as our community, been used to dealing with.
And I don't want to get too far into the weeds with grants, but 90%, I would say 90% of the county grants are reimbursable grants.
Right.
So it's not uncommon for them to go into the red while we're awaiting refunding from whatever granting agency we have. Highway is really the only department that I'm aware of that has these, hey, we're going to give you a grant, then we're going to bid the project, and then we're going to send you a bill, right? That's not typical of how these grants work. So with that little caveat, I think you're right.
Oh, I understand. It's a unique situation based upon what Highway does and how the federals, how they work it through NDOT. The only question I have is to lean to Richard's previous comment of what we have to do it, to take care of it, that doesn't borrow from something else that would create us another issue potentially far down the road. Is that a correct summation, Richard? Because we have the Hunter Valley and North Park, and then we also have to take into consideration, as Lisa has brought up, the Curry Pike resurfacing that will become a necessity at some particular time.
We moved those projects out.
Right. Exactly. So that's just,
Yeah.
So understand how I understand it got here through a series of events that nobody particularly knew about but collectively it has occurred, and we have not quite a $500,000 deficit that we need to deal with in a fairly quick time frame, but we don't have all the answers. So from our standpoint as the commission, what's the time frame we need to make a decision on how we're going to deal with this? Is this?
I think what our plan is we've got some things we still need to do. Check with the property tax records, work with, looking at our accounts and things like that, and come up with a recommendation to this group. I mean, our goal is to have that to you guys in September, right? And I don't think you guys necessarily have to decide in September, but we certainly want it cleared up by the end of the year, right? So that's kind of if you want the last second decision, it's by the end of the year, because we want this to be taken care of before the next audit.
Yeah.
prefer to do it quicker, but I think what we wanted to, and I totally understand Richard's confusion with all this because it took me a week to kind of get my head around a lot of these things too. This is not simple. This is not an easy thing. But we wanted to make sure you guys were at least aware of it, try to give you as much information, even though it may not be in the best order possible. But we wanted to make sure you guys were aware of it so that when we do have recommendations or things like that, you have this background to kind of contemplate it with. I would tell you the thing that frustrated me the most about this is that, the whole
Sorry.
measure twice, cut once, I thought we measured this like 15 times. And to me, that's kind of what frustrated me the most about all this is like, I was trying to figure out how did we
I'm in a meeting. I
get
can't
this
take the
far
call.
off when we had spent so long looking at these numbers. I mean, this was not a quick decision on the redevelopment commission's part. But that's what I found the most frustrating about this.
With having the financial review that occurred a few months ago, and this still coming up. So it's frustrating in regards to, so based upon this issue and the fact trying to identify the timeline and where we're going to have to make the dollars come into, do we need to take this issue and make this meeting a continuation so we can call a special meeting if necessary to deal with it in the quickest fashion? So we really, whenever you guys have those solutions or those, not necessarily the solutions, but the options of how we can do this.
I
that we
think
can reconvene.
our deadline is end of year.
I know, but it comes that quick, Richard, and this
Well,
is something that,
no,
you
I
know,
don't,
yeah.
take our time and figure out what's going on here. So our plan of action that you've got then is you're going to initiate a review of tax records to see whether there's an anomaly in the spring tax revenue.
Correct.
You're going to use that information that you're finding to see if if your estimate of fall revenue is reasonable. Okay. We are then going to go back and review our expenses for the time period from now through June of next year.
I think what we'll end up doing, because I think it'll be helpful, is if we said, what do we expect to spend in the rest of this year and then the first half of next year? So we'll have
First half of next year. That'd be fine. When we do that, I want a different format so I can understand what's going on here. I want you to put dates with transaction amounts, since we know when the dates are for most of these transactions. And that will give us an ability to make a running total of what we think the balance will be at specific points in time.
Do we have enough? Go ahead, Richard.
And that'll be, because I'm trying to think if there's any other obligations that we have talked about in that area. I can't think, we're all done with the Profile Parkway stuff. We're all done with Kreider on the west side of this. The only project we have going now is the Vernal Pike Bridge. So that's
Correct.
be the only drain on funds. And the drain on funds is primarily through the contract for inspections. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so we know what that total outlay is, and we can make an estimate of its outlay on a monthly basis like we did here. Because it's essentially $100,000 a month is what it's costing us to get inspected. So that's another obligation we have that needs to be factored in here, right? So there's the Vernal Pike inspection.
So when you say 100,000 for the construction inspection, We have $812,000 of federal dollars in that. Our portion on the contract, that's $1,015,000. Our portion is 203,000 overall. Even though we're paying that 100,000 a month, that's coming out of the grant fund, and 80% of that is reimbursed back into that grant fund. So over the extension of the project, we will own at this point, unless there's a supplemental or something.
I'm worried about when do we get reimbursed? We don't get reimbursed every month for the $100,000 we spend. We're going to
But
go.
that's why it's coming out of the grant fund.
We're going to send them a bill that said we spent this, then they're going to send us the reimbursement.
Yes, that's why it's ran through the grant fund, because that's the only time you can run a negative balance, because the auditor, State Board of Accounts, knows we're waiting for reimbursement.
So we're going to take county general fund money to pay this bill going forward until we're done, and then we're going to get reimbursed. So I would like us to be able to pay these bills as they come along. That's
Correct. And that's how everything is moving forward. When we set up now a grant fund, we have a construction inspection line. We will move our match, what we're obligated to at that moment. And then it will draw from that account, and then the reimbursements all run through there. But that's not how these were all set up when they originated in 2021.
right. I understand that. This system is really screwy.
Yeah.
Because it ends up in situations like this. All we have to worry about are the obligations on this particular account, with the inspections being in a different account that we don't have to worry about. Is that correct?
Correct. The inspections are not a worry at this time.
Okay, so there's nothing with the inspections that hits the 8165 account.
We will make sure that that is included, and that process is included in what we present to you.
Yes.
We'll make sure it follows the county's protocol on how we do reimbursable grants. So yeah, we can disagree with it if you wish, but I want you to know how we would treat any other area or department when we're looking at reimbursable grants, right?
I mean, we knew we were going to be very tight on these funds.
yes.
We've known that for several years.
Yes.
We just didn't know how tight we were going to be. Missing the Kreider invoice, that's the real blow here.
Well, the allocation of it, Richard, I mean, at that particular time, it's simply a matter of the way the grants were put forth and the fact we didn't have all the details at the particular time.
I don't know that I've ever seen a $500,000 Kreider obligation in our estimates in the last couple of years. And that makes a big difference here, because that's exactly what we're short.
Yeah. And I think moving forward and looking at tax records from this past spring, it should be, I think, a practice from here on out, when those revenues come in, and if there are any challenges within these districts to the assessments, because I think that backs up, what we see in the projections. So we have a budget, but we've got to see the actual income, right? And every spring and fall. But yeah.
As you, to what you said, Colin, do we have enough history to say, here's what our 3-year or 5-year running average is in regards to our overall revenue projections?
Yeah.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
It's in that report we get every year. All you got to do is look at it.
They run it in the report, yeah.
And with that, these projections should have been accurate, so now it's a matter of digging down and saying, was there a problem with allocation?
But yeah, I mean, the projections are there, but we're not looking at the actuals.
Projection versus actual on a year-to-year
And they
basis.
change a little
Yeah,
bit,
they
because
change,
like
yeah.
the big box stores go in and they want
Right.
reassessed, and so our revenue goes down from them, or
Yep.
somebody goes to a nonprofit status and we don't get any more revenue. And so there are things that do happen. We do get in our annual report a list of the changes in value that are occurring each year. So we do, the information's there, we just have not been using it very well.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we know what we're doing next on this.
Just
Let's give us, however, for your next report, get it to us at least 7 days before you plan on presenting it so we can make comments and ask questions that we're going to want answered at the meeting so we can figure out exactly what to do next time. We owe the public a little more than a half-hour discussion in a meeting in terms of thinking about what's happening and how it's happening and what we're going to do next.
October's when you, or September's when you anticipate coming back with.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll be back in September. Okay. All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you for letting us know.
He had no choice.
You're
Well,
welcome.
thanks for the bad news, Jeff.
Good news, bad news, no surprises.
Exactly, yeah, you got to know.
Yeah.
We have an obligation.
Okay. All right, we have a couple sets of minutes to deal with now. We have the minutes for the meeting of May 15th and the minutes for the meeting of July 17th. The June meeting was canceled. Do we need any notice that it was canceled? I don't think we do we?
No, we do not.
Okay, all right. Do we have, anybody have questions about these minutes? I read through them, they seemed reasonable.
That's my name.
There we go.
Yes. Here's his name spelled correctly. If I have no
I didn't
comments
see
about the-
anything when I read it.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 15th?
So moved?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for May 15th. May 15, that's Cullen and Randy. And can I vote on these together?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I
Do I have a
said,
motion
yeah.
regarding the July 17th?
I move that we approve July 17th also.
Harris, and who's the second?
I'll second.
Randy? Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes for Wednesday, May 15th, and for Wednesday, July 17th of the Monroe County Redevelopment Commission. Jeff, would you read the roll, please?
Commissioner Martin,
Yes?
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
Commissioner Keesling,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarty.
Yes.
Motion is 4-0.
All right, thank you. Next, approval of claims. We have two claims today. One from Aegis Beam Longness Neff, I think it is, for $46,654.30, and from DLZ for $60,573.60, for a total of $107,227.90. The Aegis claim is for inspections on the Vernal Pike Sunrise Greetings Corridor, which is the one that is spending all our money at this point. And the other one is for the Fullerton Pike Bridge and Roadway Project south of town. And these are all inspection.
And you say that we have some input as to who the inspectors are, that we talked about it earlier.
Yes, what we need to notice is that the inspection for the Vernal Pike construction is a contract for $1,015,700. And the inspection contract for the Fullerton project is, if I can get to it, it's like 1,400,000 and something.
479,700, 1,479,700.
Right, $1,479,700. So those will be coming in over the months. We should then be expecting, since both of these are active projects, through the construction season, we're going to be seeing about $100,000 a month for these? And then, do you have any idea when they'll slow down in the construction projects?
December to April 1st.
If they're gonna go, just keep on going?
So they're from December 1st to March 31st. They don't lose any time if they're not working during that time, but if weather permits, they'll stay working.
Okay, all right.
Based on this lease on these 2,500,000 in inspection costs, our match is 20% on that. Is that a correct statement?
That is a correct statement. Yes. For sure on the Vernal Pike, yes, that is, we have 812,000 in federal funds for that.
Okay, good. All right. All right, so I think we're good. Does anybody have any questions about these? Oh, and thank you very much for reducing the volume of paper by actually getting only our bills as opposed to every bill in the state of Indiana.
That's ridiculous, wasn't it?
Yeah. The only question I have in regards to them is, we have the money to pay it.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
And I noticed that you got the wheelbarrow taken off.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Good, they know not to do that now. All right. Do I have a motion on these the claims?
I'll make a motion to approve the claims as noted.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the claims. Randy Cullen. So we are going to move to approve the claims of Aegis BLN for $46,654.30, DLZ $60,573.60 for a total of for a total of $107,227.90. Jeff, would you please read the roll?
Too much of a mouthful.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Cassidy,
Yes.
Commissioner Keesling,
Yes.
Commissioner McCarty.
Yes.
Motion is approved, 4-0.
I need another copy of the form. Do we need two of them or just one? Just one? All right. Okay, we're to staff comment. Lisa, you got anything else for us?
I do not.
Okay. I had a question for you. I saw a lot of activity on the south end of the bridge, and then I saw no activity on the south end of the bridge. Are they shifting what they're doing back and forth, or?
No, they're mainly they're at, you're talking about Fullerton Pike?
No, the Vernal Pike.
Oh, no, I think everything's
'Cause they were
going just as,
heavy for about a week and a half, and then things kind of slowed down. I noticed there was a truck in there the last time I went through, so.
we had our progress meeting last week and everything was just, still moving forward, and not anticipating any delays on that.
Okay, so they're doing I know they were driving pilings on the south side, so then they're gonna do prep work there and then shift to the north side?
I assume so, yes.
Okay.
They haven't changed we have a schedule from them, so,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. And then, any news on Hunter Valley?
I have not talked to Kreider. I believe maybe Jeff has been in contact with them.
The last time I talked to him, he said he had all the permits and that he was expecting to get the road constructed next year.
That's what you recorded in the minutes the last time.
Yes, yes. So I haven't heard anything different than that.
Okay, so I will drive by there and see if there's anything happening. Okay. Jeff, do you have any other comments?
I don't think I do. I will make every attempt to get that revised things to you at least 7 days, hopefully 2 weeks early.
Good.
Jeff, I am not here at that September meeting, so
What's that? I can't hear you.
I am not here the week of the September meeting.
Okay.
Do we want to move the meeting so Lisa can be here? Because
I don't think it's going to make much difference whether she's here or not when we make that decision.
Exactly. And if he has everything together, I can help with preparation or whatever you need from me.
We should be okay.
That's more reason for Jeff to get that information to us before, 7 days before. Maybe you can give it to Lisa so she can also be in the loop.
Well, Lisa will be part of putting it together.
Yeah,
So she will
that's-
be, she's on the team that.
She's the team member, right? I know.
That we're, when I say we, she's part of the we.
Part of the we.
Okay. Richard?
Okay, I think, was there anybody in the audience that wanted to speak who's here virtually?
Didn't see anyway.
Seeing and hearing no one speak up, we will go to commissioner comments. Randy, you want to lead off?
Just have a question. I think we've beat the we owe money to death, so we just need the solutions on that. I do have a quick question, Lisa, for the Fullerton Pike end at the Rockport Road, just from a constituency standpoint. Do we have an idea of when those roads might be opened back up to Rockport and there by that road?
I'm going to say the end of September. I think it was supposed to be like a 90-day closure. It wasn't going to be a total closure in the beginning. But after speaking with the contractor and at our progress meetings, when they bid on the project, they were going to close one side, leave one side open. But when you do that, it increases your mobile, demobile, and everything. So we were trying to save about, I think, approximately $50,000 by going ahead and closing it. It's slated for paving right now in October, because we have the other portion of Rockport Road to tie in with our community crossing project. So we're looking probably the end of September, 1st of October.
That works. I appreciate it. I just wanted to be able to get that out there so anybody that had questions or were watching would know.
Yep, bridge beams were delivered today. 7 of them, about 120 feet long, came from Fort Wayne by a little convoy. So, and they were actually setting them as they took them off the truck with the crane today. So probably see a big difference out there come tomorrow.
So we missed all the fun.
When you did miss all the fun, I went and tried and tried to catch them coming down the highway. I saw 2 of them. So
Thank you. Appreciate it. Other than that, just try to keep things moving forward so we know where we're at.
Iris, do you have anything?
No, I don't accept it. I've had a lot of people complaining about closed roads, but of course, most of those are in the city at the moment.
Yes.
Thank heaven.
Navigating around the city can be very difficult these days.
It is, it really
Especially when you're
is.
trying to avoid the students as well.
Yes.
Yeah, they
Yeah, they
weren't
didn't get
even
to
here
town,
during
yeah.
that last 4 weeks, you know?
Yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
Paul?
That's right. Every year, like
Yeah.
clckwork, you got to
Yeah.
be careful, especially.
Well, there's been some good pavement work though that's been done, which is a good thing, but the rest of it is putting in, I think they're putting in wire. Is that what they're putting in?
Putting in
For
fiber optics.
fiber optic, I think that's part of what they're doing, but
Yeah.
they're taking whole roads sometimes and it's annoying.
Oh, do you have anything?
Yeah, a couple things real quick. Number one, the paving job at Lost Man's Lane is great. That's been a long time coming, but really appreciate that. It's a heavily traveled road. Number two, and I live that direction. Number two, listening today, we've got some small administrative challenges ahead of us, and I think that we can learn from it. Absolutely, there's a lot here to juggle. As we were discussing this, I appreciate how everybody here keeps the balls in the air, so to speak, because wow, that's a lot to do on top of everything else. So we'll get it figured out, but we can find ways to make it a little easier for everybody. I go back to the actuals, that would be fantastic. So I hate to say it's a good thing it happened, but sometimes it is a blessing in disguise. So we can, once we find the money, we can move forward.
Well, we will get it resolved.
Yep.
I wanted to also, Cullen talking about Lost Man's Lane, I've been driving around the county quite a bit last month or so, and I really appreciate the new pavement we've been able to put down in the last couple of years.
Yes.
It has made a lot of difference. I don't know where it all came from, but I'm glad it's there.
Amen.
And it has made a big difference in just traveling around the county in many areas. Very good.
Some
to
of the
see that.
county roads really needed it
Yeah.
very badly.
Oh, yeah.
So thank you, Linda, Lisa.
Thank you. You can thank the council too. They're the ones that put up our community crossing matching grant, and we hope they'll do it in 2025. It's a huge help to us. I mean, we have never been able to pay 50+ miles ever in this county. And last year, this year, we have definitely hit those numbers. And so, yeah, it's a shell game, but we're getting it done. And so I appreciate it. And I will let our crews know that they work hard and what we pay contract out. But again, we are paving more than we've paved in years.
Okay. All right, with that, I think we are done for the day. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Are we meeting in September? Is that right?
Meeting in September. Okay.
Jeff will have all the answers.
Yes, he will.
We'll have
He'll have all the answers a week before that.
Right.
hopefully two.
Even better.
Thank you for your heads up on that. And as Colin said, we need to learn the why so we can avoid those kind of problems in the future. I do like